Hi everyone, it's Rosalinda with Soil Detective. I'm out checking on Isabella, one of my compost piles. I have an assignment to share with you why I got into soil and composting. 30 years I've been working as a community organizer around violence prevention and victims' rights. Supporting victims to become empowered survivors has meant that it's been necessary for me to learn about secondary trauma, vicarious trauma, and the impacts that it has on our mental health, our emotional health, and even research is starting to find our gut health. When we experience stress, it actually changes the biology within our gut, and this has been linked to our ability for mental clarity, for emotional regulation, for focus. Did you know that at least 70% of the world's population has experienced trauma? So that means that most people in the world have been impacted by trauma. And so to me, that necessitates that we should all be better equipped to be resilient in the face of trauma or in the aftermath of trauma. So what does this have to do with soil and composting? First, let me tell you how I got into it. During COVID, I was working, doing some random insurance appraisal work, nothing I'd ever done before. And the company that I was working with, they suggested taking a workshop on doing other kinds of assessments so that they could send us out on different kinds of jobs. And so I signed up for a course on learning how to assess fire risk for buildings that are along wildlife and urban interface. And after completing that course, I was just left with the impression that in order to reduce fire risk, all of our structures needed to be surrounded by cement or rocks and no plant life. I didn't like that idea. And the reason is because, first of all, I think cement is ugly and it holds heat and radiates heat back in the summer, making it hotter, making the environment hotter. I would say they agree. And then in the winter, it makes the ground colder, and it like sucks the heat out of us when we're standing on cold, freezing cement. So not only that, but like this past summer, I was taking a walk from downtown up to my place, and there's a ton of broken sidewalks in my town that are like sticking up, right? They're broken and then they're sticking up. Well, one night this summer I was taking a walk and I tripped on one. I didn't see it. The sun was just going down, and man, I landed flat on my face, scraped up both hands, both knees. It was, I was pretty shook up for months. That's why I don't like cement, all those reasons. But again, I'm going sideways, rambling with my story. So let me get back to it. So I got curious about what plant health has to do with fire risk, like when you plant plants next to your structure. And, come to find out, a good healthy plant is basically, for the most part, it's going to evaporate if a flame ignites it. However, something that's brown and has a lot of dead material on it is more likely to sustain ignition if exposed to a flame or an ember, which makes it more likely that as it sustains that flame, your structure could potentially, or anything that's maybe along your structure, could potentially also ignite and, increase the risk of fire. Like I said, I didn't like the idea of cement. And so once I started looking into plant health, then I got a little curious about what does soil health have to do with reducing fire risk or the health of plants. And it turns out it has everything to do with it, because there are little microscopic organisms that are in the soil, that are in healthy soil, in the right conditions, that will thrive in that soil, and they will create little pathways that will hold and retain both oxygen and moisture, again reducing the potential for fire. I started going down this rabbit hole and started digging more into soil health, and how do you even know if your soil is healthy? That was my next question. And I came across Dr. Elaine Ingham, some videos that she and the Soil Food Web School put out, and I started to learn a lot about soil biology. I got really interested in what she was talking about, because everything that she talks about, when you have the right environment to support the biology that is actually responsible for creating soil, then you can reduce the risk of fire, flood, landslides, famine, and the input costs for inorganic fertilizers. At the same time that I started studying with the school, I was also interested in learning more about nutrition. It's really interesting just to know how our bodies work. So a lot of what I started to learn about, like, supporting our gut health and how that is then related to all of our other systems, I started to realize that what I was learning from Dr. Elaine is that the organisms that are in healthy soil form symbiotic relationships with plants, helping the plants to be healthy and, more resistant to pests and disease, and to be able to actually thrive. And they do that by working their way into every part of the plant. You have to then extrapolate that the organisms that infiltrate good, healthy plants are actually the mechanism for us, our bodies, to get inoculated with those organisms. Because I don't know if you know this or not, but our bodies don't actually break down food. It is the organisms in our bodies that we have a responsibility to give them something good to feed on. Otherwise, they begin to feed on us. And that is a huge contributor to, like, gray hair, like, dry skin and wrinkles and all these things. If we can actually recognize the connections between supporting healthy soil, it opens up. It opens everything up as far as empowering ourselves to understand how life works and our relationship within nature, and how we can work with nature to not only rebuild the health of the land, the earth, our food, the environment. So I really think that soil regeneration is the keystone to turning things around, because we have been going down a dark path for a long time that exploits people, that doesn't recognize life, doesn't honor life. And that's exactly what we need these days, is to honor life, to honor the life in soil, to honor the life within our bodies, to honor our fellow humans, to honor the environment. I believe that we can heal, but we got to do this together, folks. So my part is, I'm really enjoying working with composting and the microscope to see what life is inside of the piles that we're co-creating. If you're interested in purchasing some living compost or a soil analysis test or two or more, then please visit my website, www.soildetective.org. Thanks so much. I hope you're doing something today to become more resilient. All right, take care.